The German protests are intensifying, spreading beyond just the farmers and to tractors blockading the streets of Berlin. As The Guardian reported, they said the symbolism that German farmers chose to express their discontent with the government in the first days of the new year was as unambiguous as it is ominous. There were sightings of makeshift gallows dangling traffic light signs, a reference to the colors of the three governing parties. The chilling sculptures are harbingers of unprecedented cross-sector protests and strikes hitting German roadways and railways from Monday, and speak of a dramatic change of mood in a country long feted for its consensus-seeking approach to industrial relations, especially compared with its more traditionally strike-prone neighbor France. With key elections coming up in eastern German states this year, even some farmers fear the new revolutionary spirit could play straight into the hands of a buoyant far right. Now, the far right that The Guardian mentions is none other than the Alternative für Deutschland, or the AfD. It is a right-wing party founded back in 2013. The AfD is known for its Euroscepticism, which means a European political doctrine that advocates disengagement from the European Union, similar to the Brexit movement in the UK. And the party is also staunchly opposed to immigration, which really shouldn't come as any surprise considering the significant fallout of Chancellor Angela Merkel's actions back in the mid-2000s, where she brought over 1.2 million refugees and asylum seekers primarily from Syria. Now, her actions received severe backlash, particularly following the 2015-2016 New Year's Eve celebrations in Germany, where approximately 1,200 women were reported being sexually assaulted by Syrian immigrants. Most of this, by the way, took place in the city of Cologne. Let me set the stage here. You see, on that fateful night, over 1,000 young men, primarily from the North African Arabic region, gathered together in the square in front of the central railway station and began harassing people, firing fireworks at random folks walking by, and stealing cell phones and wallets. The police were unprepared and overwhelmed, and soon the situation escalated into a frenzy. Packs of men were hunting down women, cornering many of them. There were sexual assaults, and worse. Now afterwards, then-Chancellor Angela Merkel expressed outrage and called for swift action. She voiced her concern about the assaults and stated that the perpetrators needed to be found as soon as possible, regardless of their origin or background. She then announced that she was considering changes to her immigration policy. She said she was open to changing the law to make it easier to deport immigrants who commit crimes. Wow, how brave of her. And can you believe it? This was seen as a significant shift in her stance, as she had previously been steadfast in her commitment to keeping Germany open to people seeking asylum. So of course, it seems perfectly obvious to me why political parties like the AfD would have staunch anti-immigration policies. It is a direct response to these types of horrifying incidences. So now let's go back to the here and now with the German farmer protest. The German government, in response to the protests, had proposed changes to its budget compromise, which included retaining an exemption from car tax for farming vehicles and staggering planned cuts to diesel subsidies, meaning that the government would still get their tax hikes eventually, just not right away. Naturally, of course, these concessions were then rejected by the German Farmers Association, who stated that the changes did not go far enough and demanded a complete reversal of both proposals. And so, the protests are continuing, with farmers using their tractors to block traffic and even preventing a German cabinet minister from disembarking from a ferry. The protesters are warning that they will simply continue, and the next wave of protests is set to start. Which then brings me back to the Alternative für Deutschland party, which is calling for a general strike in support of the farmers. A general strike, of course, is a form of protest that typically refers to a widespread cessation of work. The AfD is using its social media channels to portray a narrative of ordinary people being driven into ruin by an irresponsible political leadership, like in the Middle Ages, and is urging everyone to join in. As Clemens Ries, General Secretary of the Association of Small Farmers in Saxony, said, these protests are waters to the AfD's mills. Growing bureaucratic burdens and rising costs over the last 10 years have built up an immense frustration that is now being aired. He went on to add that the AfD is pointing at tariff-free grain imports from the Ukraine and telling the farmers that the government is trying to save the world, but not looking after its own. Meanwhile, on Telegram messaging channels, some protesters have shared AI-generated pictures of a burning Reichstag, surrounded by tractors with the words "Come to Berlin" and "Chase away the traffic light." Germany is turning blue, which of course is a reference to the AfD's colors. So here we are. The stage is set for protests across the country. The question then is, what will the government do here? Will they back down fully or take measures against the farmers? We, of course, will be keeping an eye on the situation as it continues to develop. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. From the TBF show, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.